Hello there and welcome. Today we're going to continue with our trivia series. Before we start, let me just remind you that most of you are not even subscribed to this channel, so it will be very helpful if you can subscribe, and it will also help you to keep track of all the new content that comes out. So in the previous episode, we added the logic for our game, so now we can start the game, we can end the game, and we can also see that it works. So in this episode we're going to add the lives of the player and also the score that will eventually be sent to the online database. First of all, we're going to open our UI manager. Inside the UI manager we're going to add a new field. We're going to name it public hearts image, and it will be an array of images, so heart images, and this will be the UI for our lives. Then we're going to add another method over here. We're going to name it update heart display, and this will basically update the heart UI depending on the amount of lives that we have. So public void update heart display, and it's going to receive the amount of lives that we have. So it's very simple. We loop over all the images that we have inside of this array, and depending on the amount of lives that we have, we're going to enable or disable the game object of this UI. So if we have 3 lives left, we're going to display all the live UI. If we have 2 lives left, then we're going to set the first 2 to true, but the third one will be false, so we will only see 2 hearts on the UI. Now we want to update this display when we start a new game, so we're going to open our game manager. We can find it here, and when we start a new game, we want to update the heart display, so we're going to reference the UI manager instance update heart display, and we're going to provide it with the lives, and in the beginning we're going to have 3 lives. Then we also need to update the UI each time we lose a life. So over here, after the lives are decreased, we're going to copy this and call this with the relevant amount of lives. Now we're going to create the actual UI. So over here at the top, or of course, if you want to place it in a different place, you can do it in a different place. We're going to expand the canvas, and we're going to create an area for the lives. So heart area. We're going to click over here, Alt expand, and we're going to make sure that it's somewhere over here. And then we're also going to make sure that the anchors are in the exact same place. Then we're going to remove the image because we don't really need an image over here. And we're going to add a new image into the hearts area. And we're going to use a sprite that we got inside the asset pack that we downloaded in the beginning of the series. So if we search for it, we have some hearts over here at the bottom. We have some stars, so you can use whatever you want. I'm going to use this heart, and then I'm going to simply add 2 more hearts. And for now, they will be on top of each other, but now I'm going to click on the heart area, and I'm going to add a horizontal layout group. So first of all, we're going to make sure that the alignment is middle left. And we're also going to disable these 2 things. And we're also going to add some spacing, so it will be about 6. And for the padding, it's going to be 36 from the left. So now we have these lives over here. And again, you can place them wherever you want. But the idea is that when one of these objects is going to be disabled, then these will still stay over here. They're not going to move anywhere. And this is how we enable and disable these game objects. We can also rename this to H1, H2, and H. And now we're going to click on our UI manager, and we're going to add them over here into this array. So we can simply select all of them and drag them into the UI manager. We can do this one by one. And now we have these references over here. Just make sure that the order is correct. So the first one will go at the top, the second one, third one, because when we lose life, it will first remove this one, then it will remove this one, and lastly, it will remove this one. So make sure that the order is correct. Now, at this point, it should already work. So we're going to save and move back to the main menu. So scenes, main menu, we're going to start the game. And now when I get a wrong answer, for example, over here, I'm going to click on Atlantic Ocean. It's going to remove one life and then again, another life. And when we lose all of our lives, the game will end. So this is working. Next, we want to add score into our game. This will be the main motivator for the player. He will try to reach a higher score. Every game should have some kind of challenge, some kind of goal. Otherwise, he will just lose interest in our game. Now we can decide on different approaches. We can make it a score. We can make it a level. So he will try to reach a higher level. Each question he answers correctly will increase the level. And then he will try to compete to break his highest level, or maybe we can just make it as a score and each time add more score. It doesn't really matter. Eventually it will be the same data. It will simply be called score or levels, depending on the way you want to design your game. So we're going to open the game manager again inside the game scene, game manager. Inside, we're going to add another field for the score. So public integer current score or current level. We're just going to name it current score. Then when we start a new game, we want to reset the score. So current score will be 0 at the beginning. Then we also want to display the score on the UI. So we're going to open our UI manager and we're going to have a reference to this UI. So public text mesh pro UGUI score UI. And when we update the score UI, we want to basically change the number that appears over here. So we're going to create a method over here, public void update score UI, and it's going to receive an integer of a score. And then we're simply going to take the score UI, access the text component, and set the score. Now it really depends what you want to show and display to the player. We are going to make it into levels and not score, but you can say score and something like that, or maybe you can do whatever you want. I'm going to say level. And this is what the player is going to see. Now we also want to update the score when we start the game. So we're going to add a start method over here and we're going to update the score. When we start the game, we're going to make it 0. And it will basically reset the score and update the UI when we start a new game. Now we also want to decide how much score we want to increase per question. So we're going to open the game manager and over here we're going to add another field, private int score per question. So again, it can be a level, so it means that we're going to increase it by 1 level. Maybe it's score, so you want to increase it by 100 score each time. It really depends on your game. We're going to have levels, so each time we're going to increase it by 1. And now we're also going to have a method to increase the score, because over here we have a method to update the UI of the score, but we need to actually increase the score. So we're going to have a method, public void increase score. And we're simply going to take the current score and add the score per question. So it will increase it by 1. Of course, if you know that you want to increase it by 1, you can simply do something like this, right? But this allows us to actually customize it. So we're going to use this. And then we're going to update the score. So UI manager instance update score UI, and we're going to provide it with the current score. Now we also want to update the score UI when we start a new game, so we're going to move over here to the start new game method, and we're going to update the score. So we're going to paste this over here, and we're simply going to update it with the current score, which will be 0 at the beginning. So we have the actual value of the score, and we also have the UI that is displayed. So these are two different things, but they're actually working together. But we need to remember to update the UI as well, and not only the score value that is private. Now, to actually increase the score when we have a correct answer, we're going to find it inside the question manager. So inside the question manager, we're going to update the score when we have a correct answer. So over here, when we have a correct answer, we can increase the score. So game manager instance, increase score. And we don't need to provide it anything. It will simply increase the score by the amount that we decided earlier. In our case, it's going to increase it by 1. Now we want to create the actual UI, so let's save everything. We can also go over here and save all. And now we're going to expand our canvas, expand the background, and we're going to create a new UI, Text Mesh Pro. We're going to expand it just so the anchors are expanded as well. Then we're going to drag these anchors over here to the top. And then we're also going to change the size of the actual text component. And we can also make it a bit smaller, something like that. Or yeah, something like that. And then also the size of the actual area. And we can style it a bit, so it will be something like, in our case, level 0 or level 8 or 100. So now we can position it as we want. We're going to use the Roboto font that we use in this app. We're also going to change it to our yellow color, the one that we're using, this one. And we're going to increase the size a bit. We're going to position it at the right side, in the middle, and then we can add some padding, some margins. So from the right, we're going to increase it. It will be somewhere over here. Of course, if you don't want the level to move, you can simply make it stick to the left side, and now only the numbers will change. So 0, 10, and doesn't matter how many numbers, the level will stay over here, but the numbers will increase. Again, it depends on your design. Maybe you have another element over here that you don't want the level to overlap. So this is the solution. We're just going to keep it in the middle. We're going to set it to 0. And again, this can be empty because eventually we're going to change it from within the code inside the UI manager. This is what is going to be displayed. And now we need to add a reference to this area over here. So we click on the UI manager and we add the score UI reference. We can also rename it to be score UI. And now we can save this scene, go back to the main scene and start the game. And now the score is 0, but if we correctly answer a question, for example, Pacific, then it will be increased to 1. And 2, and then we get the same question again, and the same question again, and that's just because we have 3 different questions, so it uses the same question all over again. So we can see that the level is increased, but of course you can decide that this will be score, so you will simply display score to the player, and you'll increase it by 100 or even more. You can even do something much more advanced that we are not going to cover in this tutorial, but it's very simple to implement. For example, you can increase the score depending on the difficulty of the question. For example, you can have some kind of logic that will check if you're beyond level 10, then you're going to increase the score by more. Or maybe you have a hard question. So for this, you can go to the question archive and you can add another field to your questions that will be difficulty. And then if it's an easy difficulty, you're going to increase the score by 10. If it's a hard difficulty, you can increase it by 50. Again, it's rather simple to implement, but this is just an option. This is just an idea that you can do if you want to. For us, we're simply going to try to get to a higher level by answering as many questions as possible. So we should have like 100 or 1,000 different questions, and then it will be a matter of how much questions can we answer before losing. And this way the players can compete against each other to get to the highest rank they can in the leaderboards. Again, this is just a very basic game design for this trivia. You can expand upon it. You can have categories. You can have different themes for different categories. You can have scores depending on the different categories. For example, you can have a screen over here where the player selects a category, let's say sports, and then it's going to use questions that are related to sports. So again, it's not that complicated to implement this, but it's beyond the scope of this tutorial. In the next episode, we want to add some randomness because at this point it will go from one question to another. It will find a random question, but it will always use these questions all over again, and it will always display them like this. So 5 will always be the first button, 6 will be the second button, and 7 will be the third button. So this is not really nice. Although we don't want to have the same question twice, we do want to randomize the buttons themselves, and we also want to make sure that we don't get the same question twice. Especially if we have 100 questions, we don't want the person to get the same question twice, so we're going to deal with this in the next episode. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you're still not subscribed. It will help me a lot. And you can also leave a like for the algorithm, and I'll see you in the next episode.